The past few weeks, I've been talking to all my Bhutanese friends, talking about this session and that we're so excited. And there was so much excitement, especially among the Bhutanese men, but really from everyone. So, Shobhaa, you're a self-proclaimed voyeur. Yes. And the last time we met was in the Maldives a few years ago, right on the tail end of the pandemic. So what's changed in the world since then? What do you see, Shobhaa?
Well, to answer your first question, and just to say good afternoon to all the wonderful people here, and thank you all so much for supporting the festival, being here for our session, and for all the other sessions. Great, great, great pleasure to be here. Thank you again, Bhutan Echoes. Her Majesty, I don't see her, but I know the message will be conveyed to her, and thank you, Carissa. I am the eternal voyeur. I think all writers are voyeurs because they are interested in human beings. And ideally, I'd love to be just a fly on the wall. And I try and be that all the time. I'm listening constantly to voices around me. I'm looking at people around me like I'm doing right now in this room. I believe every single human being has a story to tell. Not all of us become writers, but we all have stories. It depends on who gets that story out from a person. But I don't think I've ever in my life met a boring person. If you take interest in another human being, you'll always find something in that person that you can learn from and that you're fascinated by. And some things stay, not everything can be accommodated in a small little brain like mine, but a lot of it that does stay eventually makes it to books or to my columns or on my blog. And what has changed since we met in the Maldives? I think the pandemic was the most cataclysmic event that our generation and humanity experienced. The whole world was flattened in one go. It's very different from war. You know who the enemy is. Here we didn't know where it was coming from. And even with wars, they're contained in certain areas. But this was something that was unprecedented. And I'm very convinced, whether we like to think too deeply about it or we don't, it has changed every single person irrevocably. How we dealt with the pandemic, we all had our coping mechanisms. I know what mine was, and it's always been writing. I take great, great, great comfort from words. They are my best friends. So the pandemic, a lot of people didn't like the use of the word productive because it sounded neurotic, because everyone wanted to be productive, and people baked, and they did all kinds of things that they didn't imagine they'd be doing in a kind of obsessive manner. I wrote obsessively. I completed one novel, and I finished a volume of short stories in that period. I was writing them organically and almost on a daily basis. There was a short story a day that I was writing. And my publishers, Simon & Schuster, they were accommodating enough, or I guess thoughtful enough to publish them while the pandemic was on, because the stories had to do with the lockdown, and they were called, a volume called Lockdown Liaisons. Most of them written in the first person, so they were very impassioned. And they kept, they started to publish 4 stories a week, and eventually it became a volume, a book, which is available, of course.
You're talking about Insatiable.
Insatiable. So yes, insatiable, that word. I think my next book should be called Incorrigible. Let's see if that happens. But Insatiable was again a response to the pandemic. We were coming out of something so deep, so profound, something so bewildering, and it was my response. I have marked my other milestone birthdays with books. And this was my 75th, and I wasn't really planning to mark it in any sense, but then I said, why not? And how else to do it but to record the year that led up to my 75th birthday. So I started to write it during my 74th year, and it's a month-by-month account leading up to my birthday in Jan. It was fantastic, just writing it. It was like, how the Ganga flows. It's like a torrential and unstoppable flow of words and images and ideas and food and people and all the things that were joyful, some not so joyful. But it was definitely emerging from something that was terrifying to most of us, which was the pandemic.
Shobhaa, you're a prolific writer, and I mean, how many books in total have you written now?
I am working on my 26th.
26th. Okay, we'll circle back to that in another question. But you're a prolific writer. You're prolific on social media. I loved Insatiable. I loved the one before, which was my personal favorite, Srilaji. And they're all so different, and they're full of these. But the themes and some of the very strong, powerful women characters run across and through them. But my question today is, the time that we're living in today, everyone is very highly opinionated. Especially because there's a lot of what you call keyboard warriors. And they hide behind computers. You might not know who these people are. Do you see this as a good thing or a bad thing? Is it helpful or unhelpful?
That everyone today is a journalist? I like it. I think it's like a democracy out there. Everyone with an opinion today has a platform in which to express it. So they have the right to express themselves. In the past, they had no platform to do so. Today, it's just all out there, whether they hide behind anonymity, that's also okay. The plethora of opinions floating out there. There's always a learning somewhere. And I really find it extremely, it's a level playing field. All of us can be opinion shapers and opinion makers and express ourselves. And I find that powerful, empowering, and quite wonderful. It does not in any way threaten me. Just like I'm asked, oh my God, aren't you thinking about AI and how it's going to replace most of, but I think I'll still have a job. You have to make your peace with what comes next. And AI is here to stay. And there's no pretending that it's ever going to go away. It's only going to be emerging more strongly. And I strongly believe that those of us who are in the communications field, which is driven by ideas, AI cannot create an idea. They can process an idea. So I think all of us in this room, at any rate, will still have our jobs because the ideas will still come from us and it can be processed in whichever manner. But as long as ideas remain in the control of the human mind and the human imagination, and it cannot be replicated by anything, any systems known so far, we are doing fine.
Shobhaa, you're known for your very kind of sharp wit, your sometimes critical, your tackling of sometimes taboo subjects, to the extent that in the past you've needed police protection, and there's been some fairly dangerous instances that have happened. And that's all because of the reaction to your books, or your writing, or your thoughts. Has that changed over time?
No, I hope I just get more fierce as I get older. Certainly there's no such thing as mellowing with age, not for this woman. I stand by my opinions. I always have, from a very young age. And it's important to know your own truths. If you're going to be sharing those truths and they make some people uncomfortable, and particularly if you're expressing political opinion that can be judged in a very critical manner by the establishment, I'm okay with it, because I also have complete faith in the Indian principles of democracy, in the judiciary, and when all else fails, I know, and I've done it, and won at the Supreme Court level, that the judiciary will not fail its citizens. And the people are completely aware of what is manipulated, what is an opinion shared that has an agenda behind it. I don't belong to any political party. I have zero political aspirations, so I'm a writer who is truly minus any agenda, a personal agenda. And I think my readers respect me for that. And it's a reputation built over 53 years of writing in the public space. So they can send goons after me, they can threaten me all they want, they can send people to riot outside my home, and the state did offer me police protection for 2.5 years, and I was grateful, but also very annoyed by the constant presence of cops. I mean, I don't like being policed in any sense of the word. And I actually voluntarily went to the cop station and signed off on it and said, thank you, but I think I can protect myself. And I do, and I will continue to write the way I feel, and what I believe in, and stand by what I think is right and in the interests of democracy. Nothing that I have written has led to rioting on the streets or bloodshed. So I'm not instigating anybody. I'm just a woman expressing an opinion. And if it doesn't go down too well with a certain segment of society, I'm fine with that.
And just on the same topic, I mean, in many of your books, you've put sex right at the center of your narrative. Yes. There's even been this hilarious story I heard about when you met King Charles and talking about bodice rippers with him. So has the reaction to that changed at all, knowing that our communities and where we are in the region has evolved over the past few decades?
It has changed. For example, the young reader in India is not as, they're shock-proof, because there's just so much out there which is consumed by kids. Honestly, that's the sort of scary part of it. But as far as putting sex at the center of my narratives, it was always a very informed decision. It wasn't just randomly done because I felt like writing about sex. No, it wasn't like that at all. I just felt, especially in our region, in our society, driven by patriarchal mindsets, female pleasure was never ever discussed, as if women had no right to table their feelings about their bodies or how they feel about being in a relationship, or whether it's with another lady or with a man. It was a taboo subject. And breaking taboos is very essential for writers. You have to be able to create some kind of anarchy. Otherwise, what you're doing is dull and boring. And what's the point? If you can be an instrument of change. And when I started to write as candidly as I did, and India was in a state of shock back then. It was over 35 years ago. I was shocked that people were shocked, quite honestly. I don't think I was saying anything that is not known. And I'm not going to bring out the old argument about, it's the land of the Kama Sutra, because the Kama Sutra is so far away. It's a text that 99% of India has never read or even thought about. So we cannot keep using that as a reference point. But yes, we do have a very rich tradition of erotic literature, erotic poetry going back centuries, erotic sculpture, erotic art. What I was doing was merely talking about it in a very contemporary and modern context, with no apologies. And what came with it, well, it comes with the turf, it comes with the territory. I'm not complaining. Today, it's a much, much more relaxed environment, and the young today have embraced my books in totality, even those which have absolutely no reference to sex or anything that is considered sort of, I suppose, I don't know, unpalatable for some people. But listen, I mean, we are living in the 21st century, so what are we talking about? What's shocking anymore? Nothing in life, nothing is shocking at this point in the times we live in, nothing.
So actually, just on that point, I was going to move on to gossip, but before I do...
You want to gossip? How lovely, terrific. We're all up for gossip, are we?
Yeah. But before I get on to gossip, just a quick question. So you write a lot about living in Mumbai, and you describe it as a city full of rascals. Are your experiences changing? And do you think we will see this woke Gen Z narrative coming more into your next book?
Oh, for sure. Mumbai is more than just a locale for my books. It's a character. And I don't think any other city in India would have tolerated someone like myself. So I really do owe my city, Mumbai, a big one. Mumbai lets people be. They're not interested in baggage. There's no time for baggage. It's a city in a hurry. Everyone's in a mad rush to get somewhere. Yeah. So they don't really care. No one in Mumbai will ever ask you who your great-grandfather was. That's something that will obsess the people of Kolkata. For example, and I'm married to a Bengali, so I know, most conversations start with, who's your great-grandfather? No one will ask a person in Mumbai, which is your caste and which is your subcaste. People in the south of India are obsessed by that. Caste, subcaste, and deconstructing the minutiae of your caste system. No one in Mumbai cares. It's very casteless. You go to Delhi and all they want to know is which colony you live in or which residential area, because that puts you into a certain category and they can slot you in 2 seconds, and if it's not a worthy enough colony, they'll just turn quickly and talk to someone more important. And so Delhi is sort of power obsessed, and if you're a nobody in Delhi, which means if you're not connected to a minister or someone in power, you become invisible. In Bombay, everyone has a chance at visibility. What you represent, what you stand for as an individual is what will be respected. So Mumbai is terrific on that score. It's just so equal. And everyone has that chance. I mean, when you look at the great success stories out of Mumbai, whether it's a movie star like Shah Rukh Khan coming to Mumbai with no money in his pocket and becoming a global superstar, or you think about Dhirubhai Ambani coming to Mumbai as a petrol pump attendant and becoming a billionaire. And look at where the Ambanis are today in terms of the world hierarchy. So it's a city I just feel how fortunate I am to be a part of that energy. And the young in Mumbai are like the young everywhere. In fact, my column this morning, my husband sent me a message from Bombay saying he really enjoyed reading it. And he used the word Gen Z. He said, oh my God, I mean, you're appealing to Gen Z in this column. But it was organically written. I wasn't thinking, consciously, which you just asked me, am I going to be addressing Gen Z? I don't know. I'd love to, because I love their minds. I love the young. I love how completely rebellious they are and how fresh their thinking is. But I don't always structure my books or my columns with a segment in mind. If it appeals to Gen Z, I'll be delighted. I'd love to be co-opted as one of theirs.
Okay. So on to gossip. You started your career writing for a gossip column as a journalist. So how much of what you write about gossip is fact and how much is fiction? And also, where do you get your sources from?
Okay, well, I didn't start my career as a gossip columnist. I started as an editor of a very, very popular fanzine, which was it just changed the rules of the game, Stardust, and I founded 3 other magazines. And I don't think you can have a publication anywhere in the world on showbiz. I'm not talking about cinema. Showbiz as an entity in itself, which can be devoid of masala. So that was the masala mix that Stardust created famously. And I didn't just write that column at all. I put the whole magazine together. So it was not about writing a column, but writing a really clever, a tart gossip column is an art in itself. To do it vividly and to create a frisson of interest in a person who may otherwise be extremely dull. I mean, a columnist can create a personality out of a person with no qualities to even be written about. How much of it is fact and fiction? Well, in terms of in showbiz, a lot of it is generated by the protagonists themselves. Because to be ignored in showbiz is worse than death. They'd rather be criticized, they'd rather be gossiped about. It's like my column today on Kamala Harris, which says she's now, right now, I think, the meme queen of the world. So if you're not mocked in a meme, you don't rate, you're nothing. So similarly, for a movie star, if you're not talked about in any form, in a gossip column or otherwise, or a cover story that's gossipy, you're dead meat. So a lot of it is, I would say 95% of it is accurate. It's not concocted, it's not made up. It can be exaggerated, of course, to give it that zing thing, but it's never something that's an editor or a columnist sitting in a cold office room says, oh, why don't I create some gossip about so-and-so? Even political gossip, it cannot be done in a vacuum. There are always participants who are either feeding information to you or rivals of someone. Then it's up to you to fact check and to get both sides, both versions. And if you can't, then there's always the blind item, which is the best.
How has, going to the theme of the Literature Festival, how do you think the high society in India has enlightened, evolved, and evoked?
High society, anywhere in the world, they live in a bubble of their own creation. They are so completely disaffected by reality. They have no idea and zero interest in what happens outside their bubble. So if you're talking about high society, whether it's in India or anywhere, being woke, no, they've been asleep for centuries. That's their privilege. They're entitled to their sleep. They don't care.
You've had to deal with your fair share of criticism for your writing over the years, with people, especially men, saying that it's your pretty face that sells your books. How do you handle the critical reception of your work on a personal level? And what's your advice to the young writers in the audience?
Okay, so the very first review of my book appeared in a very, very important and a magazine that has a lot of clout. And the writer of that gave me a very generous spread, but it had very little to do with my book or a critique of my writing. The headline said, "Her looks sell her books." And I think he thought it was a very smart line to have come up with. And for a long time, I did deeply grudge that comment because it led to a certain stereotyping. And, but I got my own back. Many years later, he wrote a book, and it came to me to be reviewed. And I said, what a pity his looks won't sell his books.
So just a quick question on Hinglish before we go to the Q&A from the audience. You are known as the grandmother of Hinglish. And even when I read your books, and I'm not a Hindi speaker, but I'm often calling my friends in India saying, what the hell is she talking about, mixing all these things together? But you seem to love playing with language. And what are your thoughts on the evolution of Hinglish, and how does it help your readers?
Well, I think to start with, language is fluid. That is the whole beauty of language. When you're playing with language, you have to be good at that language before you attempt to play with it. Infusing my novels or my columns with Hindi words, not always Hindi, it could be Marathi, it could be Gujarati, it could be Tamil, it could be Bengali, is because this is how we speak and communicate in India. I mean, the Queen's English is such an old and outdated and archaic way of expression that even the British don't write like that anymore. But the loyalists in India, the ones with the British hangover, continue to write in a way that they just refuse to let go, because the whole colonial mindset and their thinking and their loyalty to maybe their old school teachers who may have been British, it outstrips everything else, including their own imagination, because they're still stuck in that. We're not Charles Dickens, and I'm not Jane Austen. I write the way I speak. And I started to use these words with a great deal of deliberation, because I just felt it was a better way to communicate, a more effective way. It's street speak. That's how we hear people around us speaking. And it delights me when a word that I've used pops up in conversation. And it's now Hinglish. Hinglish has gone mainstream. So most of our big publications, newspapers, use Hinglish in their headlines, which was unthinkable then, because when I started to use it, all those still sticking to Charles Dickens kept writing. This lady doesn't know how to write in English, poor thing, so she keeps using Hindi words and Marathi words and things till it got to a level. For 10 years I was critiqued for not being able to write in English and therefore using other languages. Now that it's gone mainstream, no one even notices anymore. And I think we are being signaled to end our conversation and open it up for questions and answers.
Okay, so before we go to the audience, just one last one. Shobhaa, what's your next book? What are you working on?
Oh gosh, no. That no one but no one. Even I don't know, because sometimes I'm afraid and superstitious enough not to speak about it even to myself. It just happens. I start writing and it happens, and then one fine day it's there. So it remains a deep, deep secret, not always a dark one, but a deep secret between me and my immediate editor who I'm working with. And it's always understood that it remains that way till the book is done.
Something to look forward to. Okay, so questions from the audience. Does anyone have a question for Shobhaa? Okay, the gentleman sitting at the front there, if we can get a microphone to the second or third row.
Good afternoon to you all. I'm Tashi Jigdut from Changsamtu Middle Secondary School. So my question for the day is like pretty simple. What made you want to write? Like, what inspiration did you take?
Well, what makes me want to write is like asking me what makes me want to breathe. It's that important, it's that vital to me. I wouldn't know how to live without my words. They're my companions, my lovers, my fantasies, my everything.
Okay, next question. Yes, the gentleman sitting at the end of the row in the white shirt.
Good afternoon. So my question to you was, which book do you believe was your best one?
That's like asking me to pick my favorite child, and I have 6 of them, and one of them is here. So I dare not even go there. The typical answer would be the next one that I'm writing, which is not even written yet, but I won't say that. I think the first book remains special because it's a very new experience as a writer, and you don't know what you're even embarking on. And it's always very exciting because of the uncertainty. And I love uncertainty. I hate things which have a kind of a finale which you already know well in advance.
Do we have any ladies who want to ask a question? Yes, the lady in the purple Tego at the back.
Hello, my name is Tichen, and I had this question. Like the Gen Z, unlike the millennials or the boomers, we are constantly trying to change something. As you said, they may be rebellious. So with too much sources and information at our disposals, like how does Gen Z fascinate you, and how would you advise a struggling Gen Z in this current period? Like how would you define a success to a Gen Z?
Well, success is something very subjective. Each person has their own standard of what success means. Gen Z, I love their ambition. I love how restless they are to get somewhere, make something of themselves. And all of you have such vibrant and amazing brains and so much information, much, much more than we ever could have dreamt of when I was growing up. So the opportunities are completely there. I mean, it's there for you to grab and run with it. So success is what you define for yourself. Are you doing something that you love? Because you cannot succeed at anything unless you really and truly and deeply love it. So for Gen Z, they have to identify that which they adore and want to excel at. And there are no shortcuts. No matter what kind of a brilliant idea you have, it will involve slog. So I'd love to say, you just need a great idea and you'll become a success. No, the idea has to be backed up with commitment. And I think Gen Z is more than capable of doing that because they just have the world as their oyster. So make the most of that.
Okay, so before we wrap, just to mention that Shobhaa has signed books outside. So please come and take a look at what she's got. And I think this is the last question of the day. Who's got the best question? Yeah, the lady at the back. She's, yeah.
Hello, I'm Devika Pradhan, and my question this question is coming from a very naive scribbler. So oftentimes I find myself, the works that I've written or a lot of things that I scribble, I don't find it worthy. So I always end up keeping it to myself rather than sharing it out. So from you, ma'am, what is advice to young scribblers or those young writers who are trying to write and tell stories?
Well, to start with, stop calling your work scribbling because you're devaluing it in your own eyes. Think of every word, every line that you write as being worthy of you, of your imagination, of your thinking, and respect it. And share it if you want to, or don't share it. But to become a writer, you have to write every single day of your life. Then you can call yourself a writer. It needn't be something for publication, but you need that as an exercise, just like a classical singer will the riyaz, the practice of a rag or any classical work needs that to keep your muscles, your throat muscles active and to be able to sing wonderfully well. Similarly, you need to keep your brain muscles active. If you're a writer, your creativity, the more you write, the more sure you'll be about what you're writing. And the more you read, the more inspired you'll be, and you'll want to just get as good as some of the writers who inspire you. So you to dream big as a writer. Don't ever call it scribbling. Say that I am a writer and you'll become one.
Thank you so much for being here. And Kadinche La, Shobhaa, thank you so much for coming to Bhutan. We're so happy to have you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you all for being here this afternoon.